The British are out of the EU internal market and the customs union. Now they have more bureaucracy and less freedom of movement. Pensioners moaning with a house in the EU. Fishermen are angry about the barely increased catch quotas. And the Scots want to leave. It's a wonderful moment, said British Prime Minister Boris Johnson after Brexit was completed at the turn of the year. The former leader of the Leave campaign had long negotiated with the EU on the subject of fisheries. The result of the trade agreement is a disappointment for British fishermen, says Paul Gilson. The 67-year-old has been going out in his boat for 5 decades. On the English east coast, in Leigh-on-Sea, where the Thames flows into the North Sea. My family has been fishing for more than 200 years, he says. It was just clear to me that I wanted to be a fisherman too. It was more than just a job. You accept that sometimes you don't make any money either. Fishing is exciting. Few other professions are so much fun and make you feel like you are achieving something. I see the sunrise and the stars in the night. At sea I watch whales, porpoises and seals. I even knew a seal that listened to me and ate out of my hand. You don't experience that in an office. He was quite, well, let's say picturesque on that one. Because he is a passionate man and passionate about his job as a fisherman. Paul Gibson voted for Brexit in the 2017 referendum. He hoped the British could break away from the catch quotas and the fishing rules that all EU countries agree on. They would make his work more difficult, he thinks. Some of these rules are just stupid. There is no network that would let cod through. When we had a lot of cod in the English Channel a few years ago, we had to throw it away because we were over our quota. That is just terrible, to kill fish unnecessarily. Gilson was so optimistic that he would be able to catch more fish after Brexit that he had a new boat built. He called it Jolia, a combination of the names of his 2 daughters, Joanna and Julia. Today, after it is clear what the trade deal between the British and the EU looks like, Paul Gilson is disillusioned. The EU only has to give back a quarter of its fishing quotas to the UK, staggering over 5.5 years, instead of the 80% demanded by fishing associations. I was bitterly disappointed with the outcome of the negotiations on fishing rights, he says. The amount that we can catch more fish is as big as the difference between a 99-cent and a €1 shop. In the English Channel there is 4% more sole, in my area it's only 1%. 20, 30, 40%, that would make a difference. Paul Gibson seeks responsibility from the British government. My optimism was fueled by the government. It is clear to me that they used the concessions on fishing rights as leverage to negotiate the best deal with the EU. Everyone was worried about tariffs, they don't exist now. I believe that our fishing demands were sacrificed for this. In all the media, including in Europe, you have seen Scottish and English fishermen telling what will change for them with Brexit. You have repeated what the British government has told us. The fishing industry has a lot less turnover than other industries. But it has a lot of symbolic power. We are the last of the hunters, and there's just something very romantic about sitting in a bed and breakfast somewhere on the coast and watching a fishing boat go out to sea. That attracts people. They love to watch us, even the smell down by the harbor that creates a certain atmosphere. And that's part of our culture. I wish for a culture for young fishermen, but I don't see any with the contract we negotiated. Paul Gibson himself is about to retire. None of the once 10 employees in his family company are currently going out to sea. Most of them have retired or have died, and the boys no longer want to do this job. And I wouldn't recommend that to you either. As a wildlife it is wonderful, unfortunately not as a way of earning a living under these conditions, especially here in the southeast, he said. His new boat Jolia will not leave the port either. I looked around a website that sells fishing boats, he says. I will probably put my new boat there. For me, there is no future here on site. The majority of Scots see their future in the European Union. That was already the case with the Brexit referendum in 2016 and is now reinforced by the actual exit from the EU. Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon wants her Scottish National Party to win an absolute majority in the Scottish Regional Parliament again in the May election, and thus put pressure on Prime Minister Johnson to allow an independence referendum. If necessary, go to the United Kingdom Supreme Court. Johnson wants to prevent the Scots from leaving the Union, which has lasted more than 300 years by all means. If he succeeds in achieving economic success through Brexit, public opinion could turn among the 5 million Scots. In the 2014 independence referendum, a majority of 55% voted in favour of remaining in the kingdom. Such a vote should only take place again in 40 years in the next generation, argues Boris Johnson. Jill Bowerbank would rather go back to the European Union today than tomorrow. As a citizen of a third country, the British woman now needs a visa if she wants to travel in the Schengen area for more than 90 days. Similar to an estimated 500,000 British people who own a holiday home in the EU. Their dream of retirement in the sun has for the time being burst with the end of freedom of movement. Jill Bowerbank lives in the northeast of England, in Durham, with her husband Eric, the greyhound Barry and the Spanish Podenco Eva. She doesn't describe herself as an English woman, but as a European who likes to travel. I voted against Brexit and I think we will be worse off without the EU, she says. If Brexit hadn't gotten in the way, the 62-year-old would spend the current winter months in the sun, in her Spanish holiday home near Alicante. But since Brexit, she has only been allowed to stay in the Schengen area for 90 days per 6 months without a visa. We wanted to travel more now that we are retired and we plan to spend more time in our house in Spain, she says. Because we knew that this would be difficult after Brexit, we wanted to apply for permanent residence in Spain. We actually wanted to move to Spain in September, but we didn't make it because we are still doing a lot of renovations here. Due to Corona, it all took longer. And now we are no longer EU citizens and therefore have to prove a higher income in Spain in order to be able to apply for permanent residence, 3 or 4 times as much as before. This puts permanent residence in Spain out of reach for Jill Bowerbank. And that's not the only plan that the new regulations need to change, because the 90 days do not apply to individual countries, but to almost the entire Schengen area together. That really limits us, she says. We can no longer travel with our motorhome as planned. We would have liked to go to Greece, but the drive there alone has been taken so long. We often swapped houses, which is also more difficult now. It is so sad that we can no longer travel in Europe as we have before. It is such an important part of our lives. We worked hard, we saved and bought what we thought we could use in retirement. Now that our income is lower, but we can't do that. Traveling with the 2 dogs Barry and Eva is now also becoming more expensive. Whereas an EU pet passport was previously sufficient, pets now need a health certificate. In contrast to the pet ID, which is valid for the entire life of the animal, the health certificate is only valid for 4 months. If we want to travel with our dogs now, we have to take them to a veterinarian who will issue them with a health certificate within 10 days of departure, says Jill Bowerbank. There are additional costs now. I haven't had a specific price yet, but I've heard it cost around £60 per dog, she says. They say that's about as much as the pet passport. But I have to pay that for every time I want to travel. Because of the 90-day rule, we will travel to Spain twice a year. We have 2 dogs, that's £240 more a year. And I think our cost of living in the UK will go up too. Okay, there's no customs duties, but I believe that goods will still be more expensive simply because of the more complex import and export. For Jill Bowerbank, one thing is certain. Not only she personally, but also her entire country will lose a lot as a result of Brexit. We isolate ourselves as a nation, she says. We are getting narrow-minded. We are losing the Erasmus program. I don't know what people were thinking when they voted for Brexit. Perhaps they thought that the restrictions were only one-sided. That is, that we wouldn't let anyone into the UK who we didn't want here. But they have forgotten that we are also restricting our freedom of movement. I know many who voted for Brexit, not my immediate family, but all of my stepchildren, including many of my friends. But none of them can explain to me why, she says. Even a few Brits in our community in Spain voted for Brexit. Then they say things like, wonderful, so all the foreigners are finally staying outside. I think to myself then, she says, but that's exactly what you are as a Briton here in Spain. And she says, you can only beat your own head on that one. I think a lot of people just don't get it. Little emphasis was placed on explaining to citizens what the EU is, what it does, and why we are a member. And many simply believe what is presented to them by the conservative press. At first I was very angry about Brexit. There are still days when I'm very angry, but most of all, I'm sad. And I'm quite sure that there is not much to add about all the 3 examples I gave today. And if you want to stay informed, please subscribe to my channel and my other channels. I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.